Today, I'm going to talk about new build houses. Instead of building walls and laying tiles and changing floors and adding paneling, I'm back in my chair in my office because I have had enough. I've had enough of people complaining about new build houses. Today, I'm going to prove you wrong. So let's go through 8 reasons why people on the internet hate new build houses. And no, before you think about it, I'm not being paid by anyone. I'm not affiliated with any developer or anything like that. I literally like new build houses. This is my own opinion. I bought a new build house 2 years ago myself. Let's start with the first that people go on and on and on about on the internet. New build houses are so much smaller. Are they though? Well, I think you're right, to be honest. I think they are. So let's have a look. I went on the internet and I found this pretty table which shows the size of the houses since the 1930s. And if you look carefully, the trend you can see is that since the 1930s up to about the 70s, the size of house was actually going up. So in the 1930s, the average size of a living room was 172 square feet, and it increased all the way to 268 square feet in the 1970s. However, since the 1970s, as you can see, it has been constantly decreasing to 194 square feet in the 2020. So, if you look at this table very carefully, you will see that actually the size of the houses today are kind of similar to the size of the houses in the 1940s. And I think people are right to complain about this, right? Houses are getting smaller, and this trend is probably going to continue as everything becomes more and more expensive and space becomes more and more valuable. However, I do find the fact that people like older houses slightly confusing because, as you've just seen, the houses from the 30s and the 40s are quite close. They're actually smaller than the houses today. And when I read these comments on the internet, I find that these people actually quite like these old style houses. However, they're not any bigger. I do understand this argument, right? Houses from the 50s, 60s and 70s, they were bigger. However, you also need to consider affordability. If you were born back in the 50s and let's say you were looking for a house in the 70s, would you be able to afford it? Or were these bigger houses actually a lot more expensive comparatively? Now, that's probably not a great argument, I know, right? Because most people can't even buy a house today either. But I think it's important to always consider this because I see people looking at the past and saying, oh yeah, these houses were so much bigger, life was so much nicer. But was it? Because you are comparing your current living standards to 50 years ago, right? You're considering your current life and you're putting yourself back in the 70s shoes. However, that's not how it works. You wouldn't have had the life you have today in the 70s. You would have had a different job, you would be paid very differently, and overall you would live in a very different society. My point is, don't look at one thing, consider the whole picture. The second part to this argument is usually that gardens have become a lot smaller. And overall I agree, but there's 2 things you need to consider here. One, when you look at these older houses, you see the work that people have done in them and with them for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. They've planted trees, they've done landscaping, they've added flowers, they've made this garden so much nicer to be in, to look at, and they've added separation between their neighbors, right? Because some people plant trees in order to sort of create a bit more privacy between their own home and the neighbors. Whereas when you look at a new built house, that doesn't exist. All you have is grass. And I understand that when you look from above, it does look like it's very, very close to your neighbors. There's no privacy. It's really hard to see how could you live there because everybody would be looking at you every single morning. And the second part to consider is, do you really need a bigger garden? Gardens are a lot of work if you really want to have a nice one. So do you really want to do more work? Well, I guess that's up to you. The second biggest point that people usually mention when they complain about new built houses is how much more boxier they are and how they lack character and features. And I fully agree. When you look at these older houses, you can sometimes see these beautiful stairwells, you can see this beautiful paneling, these amazing wooden floors, you can see these beams running through the roof, You can see a lot of use of wood and sort of much more texture on the walls, and I think they look much more characterful and beautiful. I think part of it is definitely the fact that people have done a lot of work on those houses through the decades to make them look a lot nicer, to give them a certain feeling and character. But I also fully agree that these houses were built with a lot more design and styling in mind. That said, there's two things I would like to add. One, you need to consider how expensive is the maintenance. If you have a wooden floor, that is very, very expensive to maintain. Wooden floors can warp, they can be scratched, and generally they require a lot of money and maintenance to maintain this classic amazing look that they have. And same goes to any sort of real wood in the house, including beams and paneling. And my second point is that personally, I don't mind a blank canvas, right? This is why I started my YouTube channel, because I do a lot of DIY and I really enjoy making my home my own, because I am making, me and my family, we are making all the decisions as to how we want our house to look like. And if we want paneling, we have added paneling. And if we wanted floors, we have added floors. And I understand all of that is extra cost and not everybody can do it. I completely accept that. However, I do enjoy doing a lot of DIY work in my house and turning the space into what I want it to be. So in other words, what I'm saying is this disadvantage you can turn it into something positive if you enjoy doing some work around your own house. The third sort of big disadvantage that I see people complaining about is construction hell. If you're buying a new build house in a new estate, chances are they're going to continue building. Maybe they're going to continue building tens or even hundreds of homes around you. And that can create a major inconvenience, right? We are talking about a lot of noise. We are talking about unfinished roads. We are talking about a lot of dust. None of those things that you want in your home. But hey, this is life. When the old houses were built, they were in the exactly same situations, right? Britain needs houses, a lot of them. And this is what people have to put up with. However, I think if you make smart choices, you can avoid most of that. When I bought my house, this is kind of by luck, but this was the last row of houses that was being built on this estate, which means that when we moved in, they were pretty much done building. So we haven't really suffered from construction noises or broken roads. There are still some houses that are being built, and due to that reason, some of the roads in my neighborhood are closed. However, I don't think that creates a major inconvenience at the moment, because houses need to be built. There is no way around that. Point number 4, lack of infrastructure around new build estates. And this one is completely fair, and it's probably the most common one I see when I speak to people in my area as well. Lack of shops, lack of doctors, lack of schools. It's a real problem. And especially if you're moving to an estate that is just being built. I haven't experienced this so much because, as I said, we moved into our house when the estate was being finished. There was already plenty of schools, plenty of shops around the area. However, it's still a bit of a problem because new houses are being added all the time, and the schools we have in our area are now oversubscribed. And I can see the supermarkets are way too full. We need more, and more are being built, but it takes time. The thing is that supply usually follows demand, and this is the issue, right? They're not going to build shops and doctors and schools before the people actually come and ask for them. The public sector or the private sector don't operate like that. Is not an efficient way of doing it. So what happens instead is that a lot of people move into an area, they generate a lot of demand, and then the supply comes slowly but surely. I understand it's a bit of a inconvenience for those people. However, as I said earlier, new houses need to be built, and I accept that better planning needs to be done. However, I think from my point of view, it's a price worth paying for other reasons. One of those reasons is that you can provide the supply. You can look at it as an opportunity. If you move into a big estate or in an area where there's multiple estates, be sure that these people are going to need childminders and dog walkers and doctors and window cleaners and car washes and so on and so forth. You can provide that. You can use that opportunity. If you want to start your own small, medium business, you can do it. you can go ahead. The demand is already there because all these people that just moved into the area, they're looking for all the services that don't yet exist. And I see this in my area all the time. Small and mobile businesses opening nearly every single week, people offering their services to essentially their neighbors. And I think they can be quite successful. Point number 5. Management fees and councils not adopting roads and spaces in new build estates. And I fully agree. I do not understand this messed up situation where people have to pay for council tax, same as anyone else in Great Britain, but they also have to pay estate fees annually to a private company that maintains the spaces and the roads in the new build estate because councils simply refuse to adopt them. And it's not because of the money, at least not for me. Right? We're talking about 200, 300, maybe 400 pounds a year as a management fee additionally to any council tax you already pay to the council. The biggest problem for me is lack of transparency. If my council had said, we will increase your council tax, even double your council tax because it's a new build estate that requires extra attention, extra maintenance, I would be absolutely happy with that because we are talking about the public sector. As a private individual, I can see and I can request information on how my money are being spent. And we can also speak to our representatives within the council to make sure the right decisions are being made for our estates. However, what's happening instead is that we are paying a private organization that essentially owes us nothing and completely lacks of any transparency. And when I say they owe us nothing, I don't mean practically, right? Because we have signed a contract, they do need to maintain the estates, they need to make sure the estates are fine. But what happens when they don't? And that's very common. Even in my neighborhood, we're talking about fallen trees or some potholes. Like, what are people supposed to do to get these things fixed? And who is ultimately accountable and responsible? Nobody seems to know. These companies sometimes they can provide an email or a phone number and people call and send emails and they complain, and this has happened a lot in my estate. But on a lot of the occasions, all you get back is promises that never actually materialize, and you don't get any transparency at all on how your money are actually being spent. This is a problem across the UK and the government needs to take action. Now, does this affect my life on a daily basis? Not so much. Generally, where I live, our estate is relatively well maintained. There's some complaints, usually because the private company is not being completely transparent on the schedule they want to do certain things. A lot of the work they do seems to be around the time they need to get paid annually. So the situation is not great. But overall, I think our estate is in a great situation and it doesn't affect my life negatively on a day-to-day basis. However, I think that if the situation remains like this for the next 10 years, I think this estate is not going to look as good as it does now. Point number 7, and I fully disagree with this one. Low construction quality. I think what a lot of people are complaining about are basically quality issues, snags like screw pops or radiators not being level in their house or paint defects. But I think most of these are cosmetics and are easy to fix. Any reputable property developer is going to fix them for you if you buy a new house. I think there's an element of survivor bias when it comes to older houses. The older houses you still see are those that were clearly well built from the beginning, but they were also well maintained by the people who lived in them, who put a lot of money and effort over the years to make sure they still look great. However, there's thousands of houses that you do not see because they weren't well built, they weren't maintained. Quite frankly, nobody wants to live there anymore. House regulations, building regulations have come a long way in the last decades. They're much stricter. But in addition to that, people have a lot more information available to them. If you are looking for a new build house, please make sure to do your research. Make sure that you select a house developer who's very reputable, who's got a reputation of building high quality houses, who has a reputation of coming back to fix any issues that potentially rise. Any man built product will have certain quality issues. It's very important that your developer is available to you to come back and fix all of those when necessary. Most of the new built houses nowadays offer some sort of warranty. In particular, the most common warranty is offered by the National House Building Council, and there's usually 2-year and a 10-year warranty if you go with a reputable house developer. So the 2-year warranty makes sure that any issues you have, pretty much any issues you have with your house, the developer is going to come and fix them. When I moved to this house, we had very good relationship, very open communication with our developer, and they would call us nearly every month to ask if we've had any issues with the house, because we would then receive surveys by NHBC to tell them how our developer is doing. And we've had a very good relationship. Any kind of issues we've had during that period in time with the house, which were mainly very small cosmetic issues, they came in very quickly, they fixed everything, and we have no complaints. You also get the 10-year warranty, under which NHBC or other warranty providers can essentially make sure you have the funds, you have the resources to fix any issues. It's a smaller number of issues from year 2 to year 10. You need to make sure you review all these warranty policies when you buy a new build house. But this is a main advantage, I think, to new build houses, because you have essentially full coverage for the first 2 years and limited coverage to the most important items, to structural damage, for example, from year 2 to year 10. I feel like a lot of people don't actually know this. I certainly didn't know this before we started looking for a new build house, but I think it's incredible. And my final counter argument to the low construction quality is the energy efficiency. I think this makes a massive difference. I've lived in a lot of old houses, and I've always had old house problems like walls cracking and floors creaking, but the main one of all was just how cold and damp they were, especially in the United Kingdom, where it's very cold in the winter and it rains a lot. It was a nightmare. A lot of mold and a lot of cold. No matter how hard you were working your heating, you would always have to wear a lot of clothes and clean a lot of mold through the year. There is also all sorts of smells that I personally just don't want and don't like. You don't get any of this with a new build house. We've had zero mold issues in our house. The energy efficiency in the house is amazing. I'm always with my t-shirt through the whole year, and the heating is not even working very hard because the house insulation is just so good. And this is something that makes a big difference to your quality of life and also to your wallet, because first of all, your house is in a higher council tax band, which means you pay less tax because the house is more energy efficient, and it also means that you consume a lot less energy like electricity and gas. Point number 8, and this is one that really caught me out when I moved into my house. I did not expect just how empty it was going to be. When you're looking for a house and you go and talk to all these house developers, they're going to take you to show houses. These show houses have been designed and prepared by professionals to obviously look amazing because they're trying to sell you a house. What you don't realize is that when you're going to move into your own house, when it's finally ready, it's going to be nothing like that. And I'm not talking about furniture and sort of designer items. I'm talking about the simplest things. There is no mirrors in the bathrooms. There's this silly cheap lights everywhere hanging from the ceiling. There is no curtain. There is no blinds on the windows. There is no toilet paper holders. There is no towel rail. You don't get anything. And yes, those are not real necessities, but they make your life so much better. And you only realize that when you don't have those things. But to be fair, To start with, you can buy very, very cheap items for all of those things that I just mentioned to sort of begin your life in your new house, and you can upgrade them as you go. And again, it gives you the opportunity to choose what you like. But it's something that caught me out because when we moved into the house, I didn't realize that we were going to have to spend quite some money on all of these things to make our lives a little bit more convenient. In an older house, you just wouldn't have this problem because somebody's already lived there for 10, 20, 30 years, maybe more, and they've already done all these things for you. So it's kind of included in the price. That concludes the 8 most common reasons that people complain about new built houses. Now, I've already covered a few points why I like new built houses as we went along, but there's a couple more I would like to mention. The first one being is that the new build estates can genuinely be very, very clean, very, very nicely built and maintained and beautiful, much more so than your average neighborhood. I'm not sure why. Maybe the planning regulations have changed and they require this new build estates to have certain amount of green spaces or lakes or I don't know, walking paths. I'm not sure, but what I know is that my new build estate and the several new build estates that I've been in my city and in other cities as well, they look very nice and clean. There's loads of footpaths, there's paths for bicycles, there's loads of greenery. On many occasions, there's beautiful lakes. It's very visually appealing, and I think it's very, very good for your mental health. The next one is the community. If you buy an old house, you're going to move to a neighborhood that has a mix of people, and that's not a problem in any way, shape, or form. But what I'm saying is that usually you're probably a young couple and a young family. Maybe not, but I think in my experience, this is kind of what happens. And guess what? When you move into a new build estate, most of the other houses will have young couples or young families with young children or pets, and you will be able to create a much better relationship because you're all in the exact same situation. You are looking for a childminder for your child. A lot of times you kind of have the same needs and you like the same things. For example, people in my estate are generally quiet because they know that literally every other house has got a baby or a young child, and they try to be careful, right? There's no noise during night hours. And what that also means is the businesses that are being opened in the neighborhood are sort of designed to cater for this kind of customer. The last reason I love and I recommend new build houses is because of incentives. Especially right now when the interest rates are quite high and it's very hard for people to go buy a new house. A lot of the house developers offer several incentives to sort of attract customers. And my favorite one, and the one that we used when we bought our new house, was the deposit contribution. So we put down 5% deposit contribution in our house. The developer put another 5% for a total of 10% of deposit contribution that we needed in order to get the mortgage, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to get one. I think this is super important for a lot of people because it's kind of hard to save up money when the cost of living is so high as it is right now. And I think a lot of people are struggling to put money aside for deposit contribution on the house. And this is something that can greatly help, right? If you're buying an average 3-bedroom house that costs £300,000, you need to put down £30,000. If you only have to save and provide the 15 of those, that makes a massive, massive difference. And it definitely made a massive difference to me. But there's loads of other incentives you can find if you do your research for new build houses. So that's it. Those were the 8 reasons a lot of people hate new build houses. A lot of them I don't agree with. Some I definitely do. But I think on balance, considering everything, I think buying a new build house, it's absolutely a great experience, and I would recommend that to most people. I completely accept a lot of you are going to disagree, and that's fine with that. You can make your own choices. And this is the good news, right? You don't have to like new build houses. You still have plenty of choice. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you the next time. Take care.